Hey everyone! It's no secret that in the last number of years, Hollywood has turned out some less than stellar remakes, reboots, and sequels. I mean, who are we kidding? Most of them have been pretty much garbage. A lazy attempt to cash in on established IPs with bland characters, predictable storylines, and in some cases, an outright hatred for the fanbase. But every now and then, there's a glimmer of hope. A diamond in the rough that manages to restore the faith many of us have lost along the way. And this brings us nicely to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I had a chance to see last night. Is it a return to good old-fashioned storytelling, or another lazy sequel cashing in on a successful series? Let's find out. As always, grab your popcorn. Let's get started. If you're like me, you weren't super excited when the Rise of the Planet of the Apes reboot hit the screens in 2011. After all, it followed on the heels of an entire series of 1970s-era movies, a live-action TV series, and even a cartoon series that pretty much milked the concept for all it was worth. Not to mention a failed reboot in 2001, helmed by Tim Burton and starring Mark Wahlberg. In other words, expectations were low. So it was quite the pleasant surprise when Rise turned out to be a really good film. And even more so when the two sequels, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes, were even better. It's honestly one of those super rare series of films where it got better with each iteration. I mean, how many other franchises can we name where the sequel is better than the original? Aliens, T2, Godfather 2, Empire Strikes Back. It's a pretty short list, right? Well, this version of Planet of the Apes falls squarely into that category. Centered around a chimp named Caesar, who was injected with a viral drug that made him and other apes smarter, the series of movies pits humans versus apes in a battle for dominance. Unfortunately for people, the virus decimates the human population and turns us into a little more than cavemen, while the apes thrive, leading to increased tension and conflict, ending with a final battle for supremacy in the third film. In what ends up being a Exodus story allegory, Caesar leads his people to freedom while the last vestiges of human armies are wiped out by a natural disaster. And like Moses, Caesar dies just as the apes reach the promised land. That film in particular set the bar so high I didn't think any further sequel could touch it for a number of reasons. Not the least of which is Andy Serkis in a motion capture performance so good, he should have walked away with a Best Actor Oscar, especially for his last outing as Caesar. And when I learned that a fourth movie was in the works that wouldn't include Caesar or Andy Serkis, it made me wonder, can they actually pull it off again in making something good? Or will it crash and burn like so many sequels and reboots of late? The film starts with Caesar's funeral, and it's an honestly touching scene. Without a word spoken, it was a beautiful tribute to the main character of the past three films, and genuinely made me emotional. We then fast forward a few hundred years to be introduced to a young chimp named Noah and his two friends, Anaya and Suna, who are on a quest to retrieve 3 eagle eggs as part of a rite of passage into adulthood. It's a tense and exciting scene that quickly establishes Noah as the central character who is willing to take risks that the others aren't. And it should also be mentioned that Noah bears a striking resemblance to Caesar, implying that he just might be a direct descendant, though it's never addressed or confirmed in the film in any way. The 3 young chimps return to their colony where the apes live in large tree houses, and the culture is built around a symbiotic relationship of apes and eagles. And we learn they're pretty much cut off from any other apes in this world. It seems that whatever lessons Caesar had imparted about apes living together has been largely forgotten, and the apes have fractured into small clans, each with their own little chiefdom. Even so, life is good for Noah and his clan. He's about to enter adulthood with an eagle of his own to raise, and he's even made his father, the chief, proud. And that's when things take a turn for the worse. Now, I don't want to give away any spoilers, so I'll stick to the barest plot that I can. But basically a human sneaks into the colony, forcing Noah to leave in the middle of the night on a secret errand, and what's worse, a mysterious rival clan attacks the colony for seemingly no reason, killing many of the chimps and enslaving the rest. Noah returns just in time to aid his father in an amazing fight scene against Silva, a massive silverback gorilla leading the attackers. Overpowered from the outset, Noah is left for dead, only to wake hurt and alone and determined to rescue his family and friends at all costs. Along the way, he meets Raka, a kindly orangutan played by Peter Macon, and May, a seemingly primitive human who turns out to be anything but. Alright, here's what I thought worked. The characters. First and foremost, Noah. Played by Owen Teague, he's established as an everyman character. It's made clear right from the start that he's no Caesar. Not as smart, not as skilled, and not as confident. But he's loyal and brave, with a willpower and a kind heart that just might see him through to the end. And it's his flaws and frailties that make him so damn likable. He doubts himself, and he gets scared, and he fails. But damn if he doesn't keep picking himself up and trying again. He's an underdog, through and through, and it makes us fall in love with him from the get-go. And there are a host of supporting characters just as good. First, Raka, who is an absolute delight. Easily the smartest ape in the movie, he's the last in a long line of primates dedicated to preserving Caesar's teachings and knowledge passed down from generation to generation. Like a monk in the Dark Ages, clinging to the few books left in the world, he's one of the few with any knowledge of history or even how to read and write. And true to Caesar's example, he promotes kindness and acceptance of the primitive humans that other apes have learned to fear and shun. Which brings us to May, the human they take under their wing when they realize she's been following Noah the whole time. Played by Freya Allen, May is the most complicated character in the film. Not what she seems at first, and hiding an agenda that may have dire consequences for humans and apes alike, whether she succeeds or fails. It's the slow revelations of her true character and motivations that make her such a great character, and we're never sure if she'll be an ally or a foe once the closing credits roll. But before we get there, Noah must face Proximus, the self-proclaimed king of the apes, and the one ultimately responsible for his clan's enslavement. Kevin Durand is fantastic in this role, with just the right mix of menace and glee in his performance. Proximus is an ape who knows exactly what he wants, and he'll stop at nothing to get it. But he doesn't do it just for himself. Obsessed with knowledge, history, and old human technology, he wants to create an empire, cementing apes as the dominant species, and himself at the forefront as the most evolved. In his twisted way, he's doing what he does as much for ape kind as for himself, and he's willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to get there. Really, he's the opposite of Noah, strong, skilled, cunning, and supremely self-assured, with an entire army at his disposal. And it makes Noah's quest all the more impossible on its face. And that's another huge plus for this film. The stakes only get higher as the story progresses, and Noah must overcome bigger and bigger obstacles if he's to succeed. So when it finally comes to the climax of the film, it's as explosive and exciting as it can get. Which is to say, the action in Kingdom is amazing. Yes, the vast majority of what we see is motion capture and CGI, but it's all done so incredibly well that we're totally hooked. And it's not just action for action's sake. There is a reason for each fight and each chase, and real stakes to go along with them. Failure here has life and death consequences, and it's this emotional bridge that keeps us invested beyond just a spectacle. As for what didn't work, well, the list is pretty small. The runtime is a bit on the long side. At almost 2.5 hours, I'd suggest running to the washroom before the movie starts so you don't miss anything. It felt like they could have trimmed a bit of the journey to the rival kingdom, because we don't even meet Proximus until the second half of the film. That feels a little long to reveal the big bad, even if that revelation is done really well. And there's a subplot about humans being basically two classes, total primitives and still civilized. The War for the Planet of the Apes established that humans were devolving thanks to the virus released in the first film, to the point where all would lose the ability to speak or even formulate complex thoughts. It made it seem that all humans were affected and would eventually succumb to this. But this movie retcons that to say it only happened to most of the human survivors, and that some small enclaves somehow managed to stay unaffected. It's never really explained how that came to be, other than a single shot of a human in a hazmat suit outside of a bunker, implying that they somehow kept themselves in a sterile environment with decontamination and air filtration systems running for 300 years without being able to manufacture any of the replacement components. And the fact that May, as one of them, is walking around outside the whole time and isn't affected in any way only brings up more questions than answers. And her personal quest is kind of a puzzle too. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but by the end I couldn't help thinking, what was the point? Which also brings me to William H. Macy's character, Trevathan, a human slave Proximus keeps around to teach him history and human knowledge. He's also mysteriously unaffected by the virus that crippled everyone else, and only really serves as an exposition dump to explain Proximus's plans to May. Beyond that, he doesn't really do anything, and honestly, the plot might be a bit stronger without him, as Proximus would have to rely solely on May as the one remaining intelligent human to achieve his goals. That said, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is a fantastic film. It has a cast of characters you will love and hate, respectively, for all the right reasons, and a plot that will keep you glued to your seat till the very end. I was honestly sorry this movie ended, and I very much hope another in the series comes our way, especially since it's hinted at in the end. Much like Godzilla Minus One, this is the kind of reboot, remake, and sequel that Hollywood desperately needs to return to making. And I hope it does well enough to make other studios take notice and start focusing less on agendas and more on quality storytelling. But those are just my 2 cents. Give me yours. I'd love to hear if you plan on seeing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and what you think of it if you do. Please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell to stay updated with the latest content. Until next time, stay creative.